Hello. Thank you very much for asking me to speak today, and I'm very sorry I can't join you in person. I'm also sorry that I have a assistant joining me today, so hopefully he won't distract things too much. So I'm Alison Smith. I'm a prescribing support dietitian, and I've worked with people with living with dementia for a long time. So what we're going to talk about today is we're going to have a look at just the associations between nutrition and dementia very briefly, look at what good nutrition and hydration can achieve, what eating well and drinking well with dementia, and then we're going to have a little look at changes to taste, smell and appetite that people might have. And then just towards the end, we're going to touch on the needs of carers, which are actually incredibly important. So nutrition and dementia is a really important area. The two things are totally linked. Everybody with dementia, there are challenges around nutrition at some point or another. One of the things that you may or may not have noticed, recognised yourselves, is that some people living with dementia can start to eat more and gain weight, but actually the most common nutrition problem that we see in people living with dementia is undernutrition or malnutrition. We can see quite significant weight losses in some older people, and that does actually increase risk of developing dementia in the first place. And regular weight monitoring is incredibly important for anybody living with dementia to really sort of identify any unplanned weight loss or unplanned weight gain for that matter, and identify whether something needs to be done to try to support the person to minimise those changes, because weight maintenance generally is the plan, is the best idea for most people. So what can good nutrition and hydration actually achieve? Well, just generally, all of these things still apply, but particularly for somebody living with dementia. So actually the one that I've put right at the top is, for me, I would say, the most important one. It's about enjoyment and quality of life. And actually, nutrition and hydration, food and drink, ultimately is what we're talking about. Those are the things that we all know in our own lives, these things really enhance. So this is something that we want to try to support someone with living with dementia to have this option as well. Good nutrition and hydration can also support carers who are caring for somebody who is living with dementia. So actually it's a really important thing to not just think about the person you're caring for, but also yourselves as well, because nutrition and hydration are incredibly important to our ability to function in any situation. It can help to maximise remaining cognitive function. So we're not saying we can turn the clock back. Good nutrition and hydration cannot basically reverse dementia, but what they can do is support the person with whatever remaining cognitive function they have. It can also help to reduce risks of infection and ill health, which in itself can be a really positive thing, because that can reduce the likelihood of somebody needing admission to hospital or other support. And of course, it can also help maintain body weight and reduce weight loss. We're not saying we can reverse weight loss necessarily, but sometimes we can reduce it. And sometimes that's a really good outcome for somebody, particularly as dementia progresses into the very late stages. Reducing weight loss, minimizing weight loss can be an incredibly positive outcome. But all of the time, that's linked with the enjoyment and quality of life bit, because body weight is really, losing weight or gaining weight for that matter, isn't a thing in its own right. It's what it does for you, what it does for the person, whether they're living with dementia or not. So that's the reason why body weight is actually right down the bottom of this list rather than right at the top, because I would say it's not the most important thing when we're considering this. And obviously as a dietitian, it's an interesting thing, I think, for me as a dietitian to be saying that it's not all about body weight, it's actually about enjoyment and quality of life. So, and this is sort of leading on from the enjoyment and quality of life. That nutritional well-being is about so much more than just the foods that we eat and drink, basically the nutrients that we eat and drink, should I say. And research suggests that eating together, eating with other people, is a core human activity. It's important for building our social groups. So it's the thing that sets us apart from other animals. Most other animals steal food from each other. We share food with each other. So we are quite unique in this. There's not many other animals that do this. And our meal times reflect our identity. They enable us to make and maintain connections with others. And that doesn't go away just because somebody's living with dementia. So actually, it's really important to remember that food and drink, it's about so much more than the nutrients. It's about enjoyment. It's about basically the connections with food that we have, the things that we associate with food, the memories that are connected with them. All of this is incredibly important. A study that was done only a couple of years ago, working with people living with dementia, found that in certainly the earlier stages of people living with dementia, many people did prefer to leave thinking about or talking about eating and drinking difficulties until they experienced problems. But a lot of people interviewed in this study also recognised that people who are living with dementia may become less aware and have less ability to talk about these things in the later stages of the disease. So it's a real sort of catch-22 of people not necessarily wanting to talk about these things in the earlier stages, but possibly not being able to talk about these things in the later stages. So really what the authors were thinking about was that they found that the main purpose of eating and drinking for people living with dementia might not have been to maintain weight, basically, and have optimal nutrition. So we're not looking for perfection here. We're not looking for perfect nutrition, but it's to benefit from the psychosocial aspects. So basically, all of the enjoyment side of things, the quality of life side of things, of eating and drinking, because they help people to retain their identity, their autonomy, and of course enable quality of life. So that's really the thing that we're looking at here. So everything I say is always tinged with this. Yes, we're talking about how to improve people's nutritional intake, but ultimately with the belief and the knowledge that we probably can't achieve perfection, and that's okay. What we're trying to do is to support somebody to be as well as they can be in the situation, in the basically where they're living, effectively with the dementia with which they're living. So, what does eating and drinking well with dementia actually mean? Well, it means nutrient density, and I'll tell you what that means in just a second. That's on my next slide. So it means eating little and often, potentially. For a lot of older people, whether they're living with dementia or not, eating little and often can be easier for people rather than having big meals. It's really about sort of looking at the person themselves. So some people might be fine with having a bigger meal, not a problem there. But a lot of people do find it easier to eat sort of a little bit at a time. So it may be splitting meals into small amounts. Sorry, I'm being joined by my colleague again. It's about recognizing people's personal preferences. So people will like certain things and not like other things, and that's fine. We're all like that. We're all human beings. We all have our personal preferences. But one of the things that we find with dementia, people living with dementia, is that personal preferences can change, and people can like foods or drinks that they didn't used to like, and they can go off things that they did used to like. And it's recognizing this and thinking, challenging though it can be, because this can be a real change to the person that you may have known, actually it's okay to try new things and to see, are there different flavors that the person likes? Are there different foods? Are there different consistencies of food that the person enjoys now that they didn't used to enjoy? And it's really a case of giving things a try. Try new things, but basically remember, everyone's different. Everybody will have different preferences. Everybody will have different thoughts and feelings about things, and everyone will respond in a different way. So work with the person that you're caring for to see sort of what might work for them. Trying again later, always a good thing. So if somebody says no, or if somebody's not interested now, that's fine. But maybe try again a bit later and see if things have changed, see if the person is more willing, more able to eat or drink at a slightly later date. It doesn't have to be ages longer. You can wait a half an hour or so and then try things again. But again, we're coming back to enjoyment being a really big part of this. And while I'm fully aware that there will be times when eating and drinking when living with dementia is not an enjoyable experience, either for the person living with dementia or for the person supporting them, it's trying to maximize that as much as you can. So it's really trying to think, this needs to be sort of an important thing. Ultimately, we, all of us, don't eat and drink generally just to obtain nutrients. We do it because it's pleasurable, because we like it, because there are things we choose to have. And it's really trying to enable the person living with dementia to basically be able to do this as well. So I said I'd tell you what nutrient density is. So this is something that, when it comes to supporting somebody who is at risk of malnutrition, basically we talk a lot these days about nutrient density. And all we mean is it's a food that on its own contains a wide range of nutrients, including energy, calories, protein, vitamins, minerals, and it might contain fibre as well, which is basically sort of a really helpful thing. And the easiest way to tell if a food is nutrient dense is simply to think to yourself, is this something which nature has designed to support a new life, basically? So milk, obviously, is going to support a baby animal, potentially. An egg is going to support a baby bird, potentially. And things like seeds and nuts are going to support plants growing. So all of those things, because they support a new life, they contain a huge range of different nutrients, because that's what a new life is going to need. So that's effectively your definition. So when we're thinking about supporting somebody with nutrient density, we're thinking about trying to support them to have foods that contain all of these different nutrients rather than us just focusing on calories. So we're not just saying have lots of calories in things, we're saying have lots of nutrients in things. So you can still eat small amounts of food, but with a range of different nutrients in them to support the person to meet as many of their needs as they can. Again, as we said before, we're not looking at perfection here. We're not suggesting that we're going to be able to meet all of somebody's nutritional needs, but this is probably going to give us the best chance of supporting the person with all of their needs. And basically, I've now got a few screenshots from a resource that basically we use where I work. And this is talking about nutrient density. So this one is talking about food fortification. And this is where you just add extra ingredients to foods that you might already be making and or providing that add extra nutrition. And all of the ingredients listed here are nutrient dense. And so there's suggestions of the types of foods that you could add them to. So obviously you'll see there are lots of different textures of foods included here, lots of different things, suggestions. And these are just suggestions. These are just things that might work. Give them a try, see what you think, see what the person's personal preferences are. You'll see some are plant-based, some are animal-based. So it's really a case of having a look at this and thinking, can I improve, can I increase the nutrition in somebody's diet, particularly if they're not eating very well and they're only eating small and often, as we said, little portions. This is a way we can increase the nutrition in somebody's food without really increasing the portion size very much at all. So we're not asking anybody to eat huge portions here. So all of these things hopefully will give you some ideas. In terms of ideas as well, we talk a lot about having nutrient-dense snacks as well, so between meal snacks. And so these are just some ideas. Again, it's not a definitive list. They're just ideas of all of these snacks are nutrient-dense. And you'll see there are different consistencies. There are different products here, things that are plant-based, things that are not. But it's really about saying if somebody's having snacks between meals, it doesn't mean you can't go for cake or biscuits if that's the thing that the person likes. But having some of the nutrient-dense snacks helps us get more nutrients just within the sort of the extra snacking that a lot of us tend to do, and this helps with eating little and often as well. And then thinking about, we're not just thinking about nutrition, we're not just thinking about eating, of course, we're thinking about drinking as well. And drinking actually is really important, and it is challenging for people living with dementia sometimes to actually drink enough to meet their needs. This guidance tells you what we're trying to aim for, but you will see on the left-hand side, it can be quite challenging to support someone to drink enough to meet their requirements, because older women will need about 1,600 millilitres of fluid a day, and older men need about 2,000 millilitres of fluid a day. And that is quite a lot for some people to get through. Again, as we said, we're not aiming for perfection here. We're thinking this is what we're aiming towards, and the closer we can get to it, the better, but actually we may not get there, and it's okay, because we can support the person to do as well as they can. And what you've also got there is suggestions of drinks that contain extra nutrition. So they're things that are basically nutrient-dense drinks. And on the right-hand side, you have some suggestions for what we term, where I work, homemade supplements. So these are drinks that are really nutritious. So they're very good in terms of their nutritional content because they contain a good amount of energy, calories, protein, and vitamins and minerals. So they're really, really good things. And if you've been thinking about sort of the need for possibly prescribed products that can be prescribed by GPs, the reality is that the recipes you've got on the right-hand side here nutritionally are exactly the same as similar milkshake type supplements that can be prescribed. And I'm going to say here that the homemade ones generally taste nicer. Most people prefer them. So actually you don't have to have a prescribed product. There's nothing in them you can't get in food basically, or in the homemade supplements. So all of these recipes have been sort of trialed. They've been in use where I work. I've now worked in 3 different areas where we've used these for well over 10 years, and we get really good feedback, and people really like them. Because they like them, they drink more of them. Because they drink more of them, it helps to support their nutritional status. So all of those things hopefully are positive. Again, I can't promise that somebody's always going to take these, but it can help, and that's really what we're looking for here. So I said we talk a little bit about changes to taste and smell. This is something that does happen for a number of people who are living with dementia, and it really is the sensitivity to sweet and salty flavours. And for some people, adding extra sugar, having a bit more salt in things can help to encourage the person to eat. And if that's the thing that supports the person, then fair enough, that's okay to do. It's not something that we're necessarily going to sort of tell people off about having. Ordinarily, of course, we know that having extra salt, extra sugar in things isn't necessarily seen as the healthiest option, but actually for the person who isn't going to eat very much at all unless we do this to support them, it's absolutely fair enough. And so what we can do, though, is we can enhance flavour in foods without necessarily adding particularly loads of extra salt. Obviously, some of the ingredients I've listed here are quite salty anyway, things like Marmite and Bovril, but there's lots of other ideas here for ways to enhance the flavour of food. So again, this is really saying everybody's different, everybody has different preferences, everyone will respond to different things. So these are all just ideas that might help you rather than a definitive list of you must do. It's very much about sort of what works for you, what works for the person that you're supporting. And then finally, I said we talk a little bit about carers' needs, and this is incredibly important because nutritional health of carers is just as important as the nutritional health of the person that they are caring for. And in fact, a study that was done a few years ago showed that poor nutritional status for people who are caring for someone living with dementia is associated with poor nutritional status of the person living with dementia. So the two things are interlinked. And way back in 2013, there was a survey undertaken by Carers UK, and I find it unlikely that in the last 10 years these statistics will have changed very much, which found that 62% of carers said they were worried about the diet of the person that they were supporting caring for, and 58% of carers said that they had neglected their own diet as a result of caring. Problems around eating are generally going to occur more commonly when the person caring is under strain. So this is about caring for yourself in order to care for the person that you are caring for, if that makes sense at all. It really is incredibly important to consider your own nutritional intake and your own fluid intake as just as important as the person that perhaps you are caring for. So that's a real whistle-stop tour through, I know, and if there's any questions, I'm so sorry I can't be there to answer them for you. But in conclusion, losing weight can occur in late-stage dementia. It can be fairly common, but we can help to support people to minimise that weight loss, and that's a really positive thing to be able to do. Eating and drinking are always so much more important than just for the nutrients that they provide. We really must enhance, we really must remember that eating and drinking is very much about enhancing and supporting quality of life and enjoyment. This is a huge part of eating and drinking for all of us. And carers, your needs are incredibly important too. So don't neglect yourselves, don't neglect your own nutrition, because you can't care for someone else if you're not well yourself. So thank you very much for letting me record this for you, and hopefully this gives you some information and doesn't give you too many questions that obviously I'm afraid I can't be there to answer. Thank you very much.